President Obama went on the defensive last night about his decision to use military force against Libya. Speaking at the National Defense University, the president said the United States and its allies intervened in order to prevent the deaths of Libyan civilians at the hands of Muammar Gaddafi. But the president cautioned against using the mission to change Libya's regime would be a mistake.
If we tried to overthrow Gaddafi by force, our coalition would splinter. We would likely have to put U.S. troops on the ground to accomplish that mission, or risk killing many civilians from the air. The dangers faced by our men and women in uniform would be far greater. So would the costs and our share of the responsibility for what comes next.
Joining us now from Washington is Up to the Minute's military analyst, Mitch Mitchell. Thanks for being with us, Colonel.
Good morning, Betty.
Well, you know, it seems as though we keep getting caught in this area between protecting civilians and attacking Gaddafi. Are we eventually going to have to broaden this mission to remove Gaddafi?
Not according to President Obama. What he says is that we have accomplished pretty much all of our mission, and that is to protect the civilians. He specifically said in his speech that we were not going to go after Obama with military force, that we intended to use political means and other means other than military force to get rid of him. I'm not so sure that's going to work.
Really? What would you, I mean, you have a military background. What do you see as being a plan that would actually work in this instance?
Well, when you deal with a tyrant, politics don't work very well. If you give him any out at all, he's going to stay in power. So I think some way or other, either with the NATO coalition or with the opposition forces on the ground, they're going to have to end the conflict and push Gaddafi out of office. It's going to have to be in the end by military force, whether it comes from us or from the Libyan opposition.
Okay, well, the president stressed building a coalition and said NATO is going to take control of the operation by Wednesday. But should the U.S. be taking more of a leadership role in that?
Well, you know, he also said that we are going to support that operation. And he mentioned several things like give them intelligence and do some silencing of their ability to hear each other and go after their radars. But one other thing he said was logistical support. Now, when you read into that, that means that we're going to support the opposition ground forces and possibly some of our NATO allies, and that's going to be very expensive. How much we're going to have to pay for that and how long we have to pay for it remains to be seen. But when he threw in the word logistics, my antenna went up.
Okay, and so when you talk about these ground forces, is there any chance that perhaps the U.S. will send in its own?
I don't think we're going to put anybody on the ground. What we have here is a fourth-rate power, the Libyan armed forces, opposed by a sixth-rate power, the opposition. Neither one of those forces is worth too much of anything. So one side is going to grind it out with the other, and what we've done up front is eliminate the Libyan armed forces' ability to do anything from the air. We've silenced them there. We've cut their communications. We have knocked out a lot of their logistical support, and so they are an army on the ground that is badly in need of supplies. I think in the long run, if we continue to supply the opposition, they will grind out the victory. But even as President Obama said, it may not be quickly, and so that's what worries me. This is going to be very costly for us if it drags out.
Well, let's take a listen to that, or look at that worry that you talk about, because the other option is this. The president has said the U.S. has done what we should do in this instance, but he also said Gaddafi has to go. But if Gaddafi does stay in power, what does that mean for the president?
Well, it means that he's lost face, frankly, in the international community, because he made that statement up front, and he also said we're doing something that's in our interest and according to our values. He didn't define them very well in his speech, unfortunately, so it leaves a lot of wiggle room. But one thing we wanted to hear from him that we didn't hear is what constitutes success? Is it really getting rid of Gaddafi? Or is it just protecting the people on this humanitarian mission that the president said we're on? I hope that he meant that we would get rid of Gaddafi also, because if we don't, then all bets are off for the Libyan people having the freedom to be a democratic nation.
The president's address was short on specifics. He did not give an estimate on how long the operation would last or how much it would cost. As a military man, what are your estimations?
Well, it's hard to predict right now. It depends on how much support NATO is willing to provide. If they provide the close air support for the opposition armed forces, this operation itself could end in a couple of weeks. But if they back off and all we're trying to do is defend the opposition as they grind their way across the Libyan desert, then I think it could take some time. You notice when we were using our military aircraft against targets in Libya, we didn't attack Gaddafi. I don't know why we didn't do that, but he's still roaming around there, causing a lot of trouble.
Big picture now, does our military involvement in Libya mean that we will do the same in other troubled countries in the Mideast?
You know, again, the president said we'll go according to our interests and our values, and that subjects itself to very broad interpretation. We're not going to go in somewhere where we don't think we have a chance of succeeding. So we're very selective, and we always have been in the world, on where we take the fight. We didn't go into Myanmar. We didn't go into a number of other places where there's been wholesale slaughter of people. What made us choose this one? Because we thought we could finish it quickly? Because we had a coalition on our side? Maybe that's the answer. But don't look for us to go all over the Mideast with airstrikes and armed forces, you know, trying to bring down regimes. It's just not going to happen.
All right, up to the minute military analyst Mitch Mitchell joining us from Washington. Thanks so much, Colonel, for your insight.
Thank you, Betty.